This particular video is for PI tips for commerce graduates. First assumption is that you would have gone through the resume building video, so that you have already prepared resume and we are on the same page before we start off with the PI tips. The flow of this video is first of all going to be a very crude way of assessing what are the parameters which the HR analysts or the colleges or the organizations keep as an agenda before they start the interview. The second is moving on to the frequently asked questions, and the last part is going to be do's and don'ts as far as the interview is concerned. The first thing about the crude way of assessing the mark sheets, yes, we try to get in touch with certain HR consultants or associates of organizations, and also trying to understand the organizations who commonly visit commerce colleges or campuses to get an understanding of what do they look for in the candidates. A tentative breakup of the 100 marks of their scoring sheet is academics, which is 30 marks, general awareness, that is 20 marks, extracurriculars is another 20, 15 marks for communication skills, body language or the XFactor, and the last 15 marks is for the statement of purpose. Let me try to discuss all of these 5 parameters in context with the commerce graduates. First things first, academics. Yes, we all understand that commerce being a very practical kind of a curriculum, you need to have an understanding of each of the subjects mapped to what is happening in the real life. So, they could ask some really basic questions like understanding of the banking system, understanding of the Reserve Bank versus all the other banks, understanding ratios like CRR, SLR, repo rate, reverse repo rate, and a larger understanding of the industry. From there, they would move into certain specific subjects. So, sometimes you could be lucky enough to be asked what is your favorite subject. Sometimes they could just go on and ask you questions about accounts, taxation, economics, etc. Let's try and understand what is the kind of questions they delve into. First things first, about accounts, a good chance is that they first ask you the logic for a double entry system. They could end up asking you what is the the difference between a P&L statement, a balance sheet, a book of accounts, and how to maintain these things. And a lot of times it also depends on what is the background that you come from. So, probably a Gujarati, Marwadi, Sindhi or a Punjabi who probably might have a business background in the family might just be asked about the way they maintain their book of accounts, and somebody who has their his or her parents working in the corporate sector could be asked about how is it maintained, versus somebody who has their parents in the banking sector will be asked about their accounting standards that they follow. In case you have other interests like taking up a certification of a CA/CPT or an IPCC, probably you will be asked greater questions in accounting just so that your clarity and your application of practicality is checked. Sometimes they could ask you to make some entries as well. If at all I want to give you an example, so they could end up creating a very practical scenario of you being a shopkeeper and you're counting the set of notes that have come to you during that day. Probably the fan tilts towards you, a 100 rupee note falls into a gutter. Where will you put this particular entry as? Where will it go into? And they'll ask you for a logic. Sometimes they could end up discussing practical things like notional losses. So, probably a 2G scam, which in the newspaper headlines was 1,76,000 crore as a loss. They'll ask, where is it accounted? Is it accounted? Is it notional loss? If it's a notional loss, is there an entry in the balance sheet or the P&L statement? Why, what? And trying to understand the logic behind it. If there's a question on taxation, if at all you are asked a question and probably you say that your favorite subject is tax. So, understanding of the Indian taxation system, they could end up giving a lovely practical example. Things like, let's assume that I'm a 70-year-old and I have a 12 lakh income. So, what have they done? They've taken senior citizen into consideration. They have taken the highest bracket as far as income is concerned, and in both the cases they want you to explain your understanding of the Indian tax system. Sometimes they could get into understanding of the GST, because that is a hot topic today. On the other hand, they could ask you about the state taxes versus center taxes and what is the conflict and things like that. Again, all of these questions are in the border between general awareness for a commerce graduate versus academic preparation for a commerce graduate. Hence, you need to know about it. If at all it is about economics, they do end up moving into graphs. So, a lot of times asking you to make a demand supply graph or explaining what is a given good, asking for the practicality associated to these things, larger national risk or things like that, they do end up discussing in economics. Or probably sometimes they will just practically ask you, the Prime Minister has been traveling so much, but is there a direct impact on the economy? You can see the demonetization. What is the direct impact on the economy? What if there is a rate slashed as far as banking rates, interest rates are concerned, or probably if there is a CRR reduction, or if there is an SLR increase or a reduction, what is the direct impact on economy? So these are practical things which are expected from a commerce graduate. On the other hand, the fourth subject could be statistics. So a lot of times they could end up asking you a comparison between mean, median and a mode. I have seen a lot of colleges ask this very clear cut question. Let's assume that we have A, B and C colleges. One has a median salary of 6 lakh, the other one has a mode salary of 6 lakhs, and the third one has an average salary of 6 lakhs. Now tell me which one will you go for and why? So you need to explain to them the logic. None of them might be a correct answer, but just that they want you to understand, or rather they want you to explain the logic behind what did you choose and why. Now I have taken 4 subjects. I have tried to explain the depth of how do practical questions impact their understanding of you, and how do they give you a pedestal to explain your practical understanding of the same subject. So this is where the 30 marks are, and the most telling factor as far as out of these 100 is concerned. The next parameter that I move into is extracurriculars, which is 20 marks. A lot of times they do not want a couch potato in a college. They really want somebody who has been really active. So somebody who has held leadership positions or positions of accountability, has sometimes served an NGO, has gone beyond being just a volunteer for certain college events, and has probably taken up certain positions of responsibility in the biggest events occurring at college. That is a big extracurricular. Now on the other hand, some of them have really gone on to pursue some hobbies or interests in the areas of their interest. So probably things like photography, things like dance, things like learning karate or taekwondo or something like that. Now all of these things, if certified by a neutral body, is something they like to evaluate. You just say that I like dancing, probably is reasonably unaccountable. But on the other hand, you say that you've been trained for 6 years on Bharatnatyam, lovely, because this talks about your dedication, your discipline, and the way you've taken your life forward. Now this is extracurriculars. A lot of times certain random certifications also fall into this category. So I have seen a lot of commerce graduates take up data analytics courses or understanding of SPSS and things like that for analytics, doing an internship here and there with some B school for market research or for entrepreneurship or innovation councils or things like that. All of these things count a lot. The third parameter, which is SOP, which is 15 marks, statement of purpose. Here for a commerce graduate, there are just 2 paths. One is connect your graduation to the industry, or secondly connect your interest to the industry. So a BCom graduate who wants to get into a sales and marketing, if he gets into one of the FMCGs, he can draw a good SOP, which is a statement of purpose as to why did he do it and where does he see himself going from here. Some of them jump into fashion technology or fashion management, some of them jump into journalism as a career option. Now all of these things need a very strong statement of purpose. Until unless you express the fact that why do you want to do something and how do you bridge the gap between what you were versus what you want to be, is where the SOP of 15 marks comes into picture. The next parameter is general awareness, which is 20 marks. When I say 20 marks of general awareness, the basic expectation is that whatever is happening in the news. An HR generalist summed it up in a very simple single line. Anything that has hit the newspaper for more than 3 days consecutively deserves attention as a general awareness. So let's assume that for this particular year we have topics like demonetization, we have Kejriwal nearly hitting the news every 3rd day, Mayawati hitting the news, Jayalalitha's death happened in December, probably Trump is a hot topic in India, ISIS is a hot topic. So these are things which you need to be researched about, you need to have an opinion about them, because this is where your maturity and your reading comes into picture. The last 15 marks is communication skills, body language, or the X factor. Now communication skills and body language is not something that you can train for. You just rehearse your answers, you make your English better, you make your presentation skills better, you work on your confidence. I think these 15 marks are taken care of. When I say X factor, this is where certain organizations defined it really well. They said that sometimes all the conventional factors aside, there could be this one candidate who impresses you in a particular parameter. So let's assume that I want to be interviewed for a sales profile in Vodafone or an Airtel. Now what if the candidate comes across as somebody who is a sheer fighter, who pursues numbers, who is aggressive, who thinks on his feet? I would rather take him rather than going with somebody who is really good with academics but probably not somebody who is a sales guy. So these 15 marks as an X factor are given as an interviewer's discretion for certain parameters which they are able to love on the interview desk. Now that these 5 parameters, 100 marks are done, we move on to the most frequently asked questions, which is common questions which are very strong introspection judgment parameters. Things like, where do you see yourself 5 years down the line, where do you see yourself 10 years down the line, what are the strengths that you have, what are the weaknesses that you have. Now these questions 5 years and 10 years always have a connect to, please try to have a connect with your industry, with your role, and where do you see yourself. As far as strengths and weaknesses are concerned, don't go overboard with strengths. Strengths need to be quantified with the achievements that you have. Don't really try to play down the weaknesses or try to camouflage them, telling that procrastination was a weakness, but just that now I am much better because I have started planning myself with a calendar or a timekeeper. This is not how it works. So, everybody knows that they have strengths, everybody knows that they have weaknesses. A good introspected, polished, right answer makes a great difference inside the interview. Sometimes, just to check your analytical skills or your number crunching skills, they could end up giving you a small puzzle here or a small puzzle there, which you need to solve then and there. Sometimes you might not end up reaching the answer, but your approach to that particular question is what matters more. The last part of this particular video is the do's and don'ts for the interview. I'll take both of them together. First, be in formals. Second, have a good file which you carry, and all the certificates arranged in a descending order, and that too certifications which are of national level, international level, probably come first, then come state and university, then come district and school. So take care in that particular order. Have a neatly arranged file and a neat file. Once you enter, greet the interviewer, thank them once you're done with the interview, maintain a good eye contact, stay positive. Do not try to fake neither your answers nor your personality. Sometimes a very strong don't know to a question is a very good answer in comparison to giving a fake answer to a particular question. All in all, just ensure that you're confident, you play in your area of strength, don't try to fake anything, and I think that should take care of the interview. That's it from us as far as PI tips for commerce graduates is concerned. In case you have any questions which are still unanswered, feel free to drop it in the comments below. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks a lot and best of luck.